Advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning, good afternoon, welcome. We are here. We're a little bit late this morning. We do this show when we are live from Tarzana, California, and that is part of Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is the traffic capital of the world, my understanding, and it certainly was my understanding today. It took me almost 3 hours to get here with you today, and I'm thrilled to be here and to be alive. Thank you for being patient and for the fact that we are starting a little bit late this morning. We've done how many shows, Emily? Like 400 plus shows. And we have never had to do this before, start the show late because of traffic. So I apologize, and I literally have just run into the studio, but here is the thing, so from time to time we do have SIG alerts here in Los Angeles, and it becomes a thing where you just have to be safe when you're trying to get someplace, and it is my understanding that there, as is often, I think almost always the case in a SIG alert, that someone is fighting for their life. And so I'm incredibly grateful to be here and praying for everyone who was involved in whatever was slowing up the traffic, and hoping that everyone else who's moving through their traffic today goes through it with caution and with speed, because it is a life and death situation. So in any case, we are here. We are live right now from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. I am Shannon Penrod, and so excited to be here with you for the next about an hour and a half, a little bit shorter show today, but we still have a lot of content to cover, and we want to do it in kind of a quick way to kind of condense everything that we were going to do in that 2 hours. So I want to start out and remind you that there are lots of different ways to interact with the show here. Emily's going to show you some of the different ways. I'm going to remind you that www.autism-live.com is one of the easiest ways to connect with us. You can watch that now live on your tablet devices. You can watch it on your phone now live. And the great thing about when you go there, as opposed to some of the other places, that you can also watch us live now. How exciting is this? But the great thing about when you go to autism-live.com, there is a little white box there, and you have the ability to ask questions in real time. Now, I know if you're looking at it right now, it says it's not live. Give me a second, and I'm going to get that live for you. But in any case, it is a way for you to participate for free. I also want to mention that you can watch us live on our YouTube channel. We encourage you to subscribe on that channel, and I really want to encourage you to subscribe to our newsletter, because we have been working on stuff for the fall, and if we got some big surprises for you. We're going to be giving away a lot of free stuff throughout the fall and through the holidays, and I want you to get the benefit of that. And part of the way that you're going to be able to do that is to subscribe to our free letter. Don't worry, we don't give your address to anybody else, and we don't spam you with a whole bunch of stuff. The newsletter comes once a month. It's a very colorful one-page thing that comes in your inbox, and Emily Goodwin, our fabulous Emily Goodwin, puts it together, and she does a really good job with it. So you're going to want it, and it's going to clue you into how you're going to get some of this free stuff. And what's better than free stuff? Not much in life. So participate with us in that way. As we start the show, I always remind you, I am not an expert in autism. I bring in experts in autism because I think it's important for you to get that viewpoint. I'm a parent. That's another viewpoint, and I think, I would say fairly important. I don't know if I'm going to say equally important, but as far as my own kid is concerned, yeah, equally important. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. He's now 10. And so I have a real passion for helping you to get the answers that you need, because heaven knows if people hadn't given me a roadmap and set me out on a path, I don't know where we'd be today. So participate and ask questions, but I'm not the expert. We do every morning, though, like to start out with something called the jargon of the day. This is our time of day when we take some of these terms that the experts use and put them in parent-friendly and person-friendly parlance so that we can maybe understand what the hey nanny nanny they're talking about, right? So today's term is tact. Tact. We've all heard of tact before, but in an entirely different context. We're not talking about, watching our words and making sure that we don't say something that hurts other people's feelings. It's very different. All right, let's take a look at our actual definition for tact. It is a verbal operant evoked by a nonverbal discriminative stimulus and followed by generalized condition reinforcement. So glad we could share that with you, because I'm sure that makes total sense to all of you. It wouldn't have to me. So let's move on to our working definition, which is a little less specific, but a little less accurate, but maybe we'll start to understand what this means. Spontaneously labeling or commenting about things that the child comes into contact with for the purpose of communication. Now, if you're trying to build language with a child, and one of the first things we talk about is manding, when the child is requesting something. And that can be pointing, they can make an utterance, a sound, they can be signing, they can exchange something for it, but it's because they're requesting it. They want water, and so they either say wah wah or waga, or they point to it, or they hand a token for it. Eventually, as we're building towards conversation, we want the child to be able to tact. That means that if they see something, they're not requesting it, and they're not just simply labeling it, because I could hold this up and say, what is it? And the child says water, right? That's labeling. But tacting is when you're saying something, pointing something out, labeling it for the purpose of conversation. So this is when a child sits in the back seat of the car and says, bird, right? They're calling it to your attention, and because they're starting a conversation with you. You didn't ask them what the bird was, they saw it, and they're tacting. They're labeling it because they're having the conversation. It's like a conversation starter. The child who says balloon or clown or mama, because mama has come into the room and they want to point that out to daddy. That's tacting. It's a really important leap, and getting our kids to tact can sometimes be a really difficult thing, because setting it up so that it naturally occurs is hard. It's not impossible, but it is an important leap for our kids to make. So ask yourself, is my child tacting? They can label, but are they tacting? And we'll talk more about that perhaps later on today. We always like to give you a question of the day, and just because we're giving you a short show today, we don't want to short shrift you there. So our question is today is a big one. How are you helping your child to prepare for adulthood? What are you doing? And it doesn't matter how old your child is. If they're 2, there are things that you're doing to help them to prepare for adulthood. If they're 22, you're helping them to prepare for adulthood. So write in and tell us. It's going to give other people other ideas. I am going to get that live feature up and running for you in just a second. Okay, our topic today and this entire week, and Emily's thanking me right now for rushing that, is transitioning to adulthood. How we help all of our kids on the spectrum get ready for adulthood. So some of the different things that we have going on here today in the studio. In just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by Ashley Colis for great stuff with Ashley. Ashley brings in things and tells us about them. She's a BCBA, but she helps us to spend our dollars wisely, and that's a really good thing. We hopefully will get to our school tip, and then at the top of the next hour, a little ways into the next hour, we're going to be bringing in Angela Persicke, another board-certified behavior analyst, and that we call that segment Breaking It Down with Angela. She helps us to find the ways that we can break something down into teachable moments that make sense to us and to whoever we're working with. So all of that and answering your questions now that we're here, we're live. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll be back after these messages. Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're gonna take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Teacher has some glasses.
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana. We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible. Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest joining us now in the studio is Ashley Colis, and we call this Great Stuff with Ashley. Ashley, welcome.
Thank you.
It's always such a thrill to have you here. And for those of you who've never seen Ashley before on the show, I can talk today. I'm just renting these lips. I had so much time in the car this morning, you'd think that I would have had my mouth all warmed up. But Ashley is a board-certified behavior analyst. She has extensive experience working with children on the autism spectrum, and she's a great shopper. And these are great skills to have in life, and she shares them with us freely by telling us things that we can purchase and do that will help our kids to be more productive and for all of us to get more done. So we love that. And Ashley and I met, was it yesterday or the day before yesterday?
I think the day before.
And when I said earlier that we're so excited about some of the things that are coming up, and especially moving into the holidays, because
We have a lot of really good stuff coming up. We do.
We were joking about it, about how, like Oprah good stuff.
Yeah.
It's like that kind of good stuff. So you guys aren't going to want to miss it. You're going to want to tune in for this.
Definitely.
And Ashley has the best taste in the world. So we want to start by talking about the pencil grips, and I should have brought them in here for us to talk about them, but you featured them, was it 2 weeks ago on the show?
Yeah.
And there were 2 sets of pencil grips, and they're fascinating. I took them with me to a meeting, and the OT person drooled.
Yeah.
I mean, literally drooled. So it's that kind of exciting thing. So there's 2 different packets, and both of them have just a bunch of different stuff in them that would be useful to almost
You'll find
anybody.
something in either one, for sure, that you like for yourself or your child.
Yes. So we are going to be giving those away. We just last week gave away we finally announced the winner of the backpack that you had brought in. So the 2 pencil grips, my understanding is that Emily right now has posted something on our Facebook. You can go there and leave a comment talking about what do we want the comments to be?
So the pencil grips are a type of assistive technology, something that we can use in addition to something that already has a function, like a pencil, that help our child to achieve a certain goal or to be able to perform a certain task. So like a lot of people think of assistive technology as only like a Dynavox or some kind of speech device, but they're all types, and pencil grips are one of them. So if you've had any assistive technology influence your child's performance or the way that they do things, we want to hear about that stuff and have people leave comments.
So you're gonna write a comment having to do that, and of the people who leave comments, we're gonna pick somebody at random.
Yes.
So great, and we'll announce who the winner of that is on next week's show.
Yes.
So you'll have a couple of days to comment, but we'll decide. We'll pick at random a couple of days before the show. So don't wait. Go ahead and go on there and comment.
Yeah.
Okay. Now today, Ashley is here to talk with us about studying and how we can help our kids to study.
So it's good because your topic this week is about transitioning, and as adults we still have things that we have to study for. So study skills are really important, and it's something you have to learn. So I brought in a couple of ideas they're apps. I love apps. So the first one I have is called In Class, and the really cool thing about this app is it's basically like a recorder, and so you can record the audio from what your professor or your teacher is saying, and then you can take snapshots of like your diagrams and notes, and it links them all together. And you can do social media sharing with your classmates. So if they want to comment on your notes or add a picture of their own notes, and you can multitask on it. So if you have it you can have it running in the background and recording, what the teacher is saying, a lecture on history, and you can also be using your app. So if you have a child that's working on some kind of self-monitoring in class and they're using an app to track that, then they could be doing both.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very cool. And that one is free for now. So if you want your child to be using something like that, it's really simple to use. It's not too complicated. Then jump on it now before it becomes pricey.
So that's called In Class. Do we know who the company is who puts that out?
I'm not sure of which it is.
Okay, because I've noticed a couple of times I've gone to download the apps that you tell us, and there's multiple under that name, because I think people are seeing, I can make money by having the app with the same name. So it's a free one, In Class, and we'll try to get you the name of the company. So it's
I will post on our Facebook page the links to these apps in the App Store, so that if you're interested, you can just click on it.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
And it'll take you directly there.
That'd be fabulous. Yeah. Okay, so In Class, a great one. You've got more there?
Yeah, I have Quizlet. So have you heard of Quizlet?
I have heard of Quizlet.
Quizlet's pretty cool. I used Quizlet myself to study for my BCBA exam, and the best part of Quizlet is you can go in and look for a textbook that you're using, and people already have cards in there. Yeah. And I haven't come across any sets that were not good. Yeah. There are some that were not right for me how I study, but I used other people's sets of cards to study for the BCBA exam, and I did well. I passed. So
there you go.
That was something that helped me with fluency, making sure that I knew things front to back.
And it helps you to create flashcards,
You can create your own flashcards for free.
Yes.
And they're all digital, or you can print them out.
Okay.
It will also take the information that you put into the system, and it can generate a multiple choice test.
Love it.
Or a matching game. all sorts
love
of really
it.
cool stuff.
So you could do that for your kid and set it up so that any topic and make your own flashcards. But I love the idea too. I have actually used it to search other people's flashcards before
Yes,
too.
the library they have is extensive and very good.
And I think you're not the only person who's used it for the BCBA test. A lot of
Absolutely.
students have. So if you're a parent or a practitioner and you're wanting information about ABA specifically, there are lots of flashcards. If you're looking for a topic or to find what a word means, that's where I look, is on Quizlet before I go to Google.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I definitely recommend that. And I was tutoring a child in Spanish recently, and they had a textbook, and I said, you know, let's just see if this book and this chapter is on Quizlet, and it was.
Yeah.
And so he was able to use the cards to study, which is great, I think, because it minimizes the amount of work. The only thing that you need to realize with the flashcards is your child has to be able to self-monitor.
Yeah.
So be able to say, that one I got right, this one I got wrong,
Right.
and then have a system for like error correction. So I got it right, so I'm going to put it in this pile,
Right.
but I got it wrong, so I'm going to have to go over it again
Good
until I get
point.
it right.
And one of the
So
ways we can
that's
do
what
that is by doing that with them many times and then teaching them how to do it themselves.
Yes,
Awesome.
definitely.
Love it. Okay, anything else?
I do. I have iStudies Pro, and this is more of an app that helps with organization, because how many times does someone's child come home and say, I don't have any homework, and then there are like 8 things written on the board when you go to drop them off the next day that were due. So this helps, it has colors and icons that you can put in all your assignments and your class schedule, and you can put their grades in there so it can track their grades.
Wow.
And it's customizable, the view, so you can do daily or weekly or monthly. And a lot of teachers are starting to use this in the classroom, because a lot of schools are adopting tablets in the classroom. And putting reminders in for when tests are, when you need to be working on projects. It's a really good thing.
What's the name of it again?
It's spelled a little bit funny, but it's iStudiez Pro. This one is, let's see, $2.99.
$2.99.
Yeah.
Very affordable. When you consider all the other things you can buy educationally, that's very affordable.
Yeah, and like we were talking about Outlook the other day and how I live on Outlook. And so this is actually like a stepping stone to that, because if your child is going to be transitioning into maybe an office job, they're going to have to be used to using some type of schedule, and it's just like going from a visual schedule into something more complicated, like using an app like this, and then into like computer software that's linked to your email. So it's a really good thing to have, even if it's just for the visual schedule part, like social studies, history with the colors, and the icons they have are really cool and they match. So when I brought in my visual schedule, I had icons as well.
Love it. These are all great things for studying, and you're going to link these on our Facebook page so that people can just, okay, fabulous. Thank you so much. That's incredible.
Thank you for having me.
And next week, you've got some really good tasting things that you're going to be bringing.
I'm so excited.
Yes, and we should say that it's Namaste products, which I'm a huge fan of, and you're going to be bringing in some tasty treats from Namaste, things that you can make from a mix that are really incredible. So you guys won't want to miss that next week with Namaste. Okay.
And we have lots of giveaways.
There you go.
Tasty stuff.
You're going to want the giveaways from Namaste, trust me. All right, thank you so much, Ashley. We're going to take a short break, and we're going to be back with more of Autism Live after these messages.
For the month of August, I figured we'd do some fun in the sun activity. We're gonna make our very own frozen bowling game. It's super fast and super easy. I was inspired by some lessons I saw in skills. All right, so let's get to it. The materials you'll be needing are water, water bottles, balloon, and food coloring, which is always optional. First step you're gonna do is make your bowling ball, since it'll have to freeze overnight. The first thing I'm gonna do is take my balloon and put a few drops of food coloring in it. This is optional. If you don't have food coloring or your child has an allergy to it, don't use it, but I thought it'd be fun to make everything super colorful. So, I have my food coloring. I'm gonna put a few drops in here. And then, take it to the sink and fill it up with water and tie a knot. Here's my balloon filled with water and the food coloring. I'm gonna take this and place it in the freezer with some towels, just so it holds its shape better. Our next step is to make the bowling pins. I have 10 recycled water bottles that I've refilled with water. Now I'm gonna put some food coloring in them.
Straight to the center at full speed. The light will surround you in a blink of an eye.
Now that my bowling ball is frozen and my pins have been filled with water, let's go outside and play with these.
See all the colors in the sky tonight. It's time to let the sunshine hide.
I hope you and your family have fun with the frozen bowling game like I did with my friend Emily. Well, until next time, craft on, guys. Bye.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we started our show a little bit later today, but we are hurrying to get a little bit caught up. And just after the break, at the hour, we're going to be bringing in the wonderful Angela Persicke for Breaking It Down with Angela Persicke. You guys have written in a bunch of questions. And you guys had some comments yesterday. My computer here blitzed out for I don't know whatever reason, and so I didn't get your questions towards the end of yesterday's show. We had been talking with Dr. Doreen Grandpichet about medicines, and somebody had written in about a 20-year-old on the spectrum that has been taking medicine and that it wasn't having an effect, and wanting to know, how typical that was. Somebody else wrote in and said the medicines don't work. I wish everybody knew that. I will say this. That there are different needs for different individuals, right? And Dr. Grandpichet was talking about that yesterday, that, especially with autism, we see that medicine affects kids in different ways. And it's very hard to put a carte blanche and just say, look, this doesn't work and this does work. I'm telling you this from a parent perspective. So I never try to judge. If a parent says to me, look, we're doing the medicines, I don't judge that, because there are some kids who need to be on medicine. My question always is, are you seeing a difference? And my second question is, were you able to try really good behavioral intervention before you went to medicine? And the only reason why I ask that is because the studies have been unclear about whether medicine really has an effect. There have been really many studies that have been done that say that some of these SSRIs don't have an impact on mood with our kids, and many other medicines that are out there that they've said are not actually helpful. And there are side effects that come with them. So I take the tact as a parent, and I know a lot of doctors take this tact also, is that let's go with what is shown to be most effective and is the least intrusive with the least negative side effects, which is just sort of like a rule of thumb and, common sense. So I know that when you go to the pediatrician or you go to the internist after you're done with a pediatrician, a lot of times they have a prescription pad, right? And so they write a prescription pad for medicine. That is their go-to for most things. And for our kids that are on the autism spectrum, it is becoming more prevalent that they will write the prescription for behavioral intervention because the word is getting around and insurance pays for it. But for a lot of doctors, it's still not the go-to. They will much quicker write the prescription for a medicine. And so as a parent, I would just suggest to you, have you had access to try behavioral intervention first? Because it is shown to be much more successful. It doesn't have the side effects, and it is not something generally that people need to continue taking, whereas the medicine, it becomes a thing where it's many years or a lifetime, and it does have the potential for side effects. So I would never say that medicines don't work, right? But I would say first of all, if you're trying the medicines, are they actually working? Are you measuring and to see if they're actually working? And have you been able to try behavioral intervention first? Because that, to me, is key. And not everyone has access to it, right? So there are no judgments there. We also have had a bunch of questions about 3-year-olds. and the family who just got a diagnosis of autism for the 3-year-old. Prior to diagnosis, he was enrolled in a half-day childhood program through our school district. The question is, what kinds of questions do we need to ask our school district now that we have this diagnosis? And that is a great question, truly a beautiful question. From a parent point of view, and then we're also going to ask this of our BCBA Board Certified Behavior Analyst, Angela Persicke, when she joins us. But as a parent, I would be asking about I would be asking to see if you can tour the many different classrooms that might be a placement for your child, what kinds of programs they have available for autism, what their intervention looks like, what their ratio is, and what their philosophy of working with individuals on the autism spectrum is. Now, that's a great place to start and ask them those questions and see what they come back with, but it certainly isn't going to be the be-all, end-all. I know when my child was 3 and I met with the school district and we started talking with them at 2.5 about what was the placement going to be. And I asked all those questions, and we were given the opportunity to tour the school site. And at that school site, they had 3 different classrooms. They had a classroom for kids who were more profoundly affected, which was, by the way, the classroom that they recommended that my child go into. They had a classroom for kids who were doing a little bit better, who could work in small groups. So the ratio went from 1 adult to 2 children in that more profound classroom, to the middle classroom where I think the ratio was somewhere in the neighborhood of like 1 to 4. And then there was a third group for kids who really their delay was just with language. They were really going to hardcore hit language. Those were the 3 classrooms. Now, I briefly toured all 3 classrooms, but what was offered to my son was that more profound classroom, and I spent a little bit more time in that classroom. And I asked a lot more questions about what the philosophy was there, and I asked what the outcome, the expected outcome was. Because and it's individual for parents, and remember, my child was nonverbal at this point, and that was the most restrictive environment was what they had recommended, and I don't think it was inappropriate in terms of I don't think he could have succeeded in that middle classroom, and there's no way he could have made it in the higher functioning classroom. No way. But I wanted to know what the expected outcome was for my son. What was the expectation of where he was going to end up? He was 3 at the time, and I wanted to know, what they saw for him by the time he was 5. And that was where I started to go, I'm not sure that this is right for us, because the expected outcome was that he would be continuing on in those kinds of classes. And that if he showed significant improvement, that he could spend part of the day in the class that was more middle of the road. And that wasn't what I wanted at that point. At 3, there's so much you can do. And honestly, at 3, depending on how your child is, I don't think anybody should ever give up on a 3-year-old and say that our expectation is that he's never going to be mainstreamed. And my son was mainstreamed by age 5. But also, I think, asking questions about what the methodology is and watching to see what the methodology was. I knew enough about ABA at that point that I knew that what they were trying to teach my child had to be really reinforcing. And what I saw in the classroom did not suggest to me that that was the case, that it wouldn't be for my child. I wouldn't say for all children, right? That it wasn't going to be for my child. And I felt that it would be parking him someplace. So I would really take a good look and be asking them, what data do you have to show how many kids have progressed out of this setting? I did ask that question, didn't like the answer for it. And ultimately, what we decided to do with our 3-year-old was to do a 40-hour ABA program in the home and to have him go. He went twice a week to speech, and I think he went once or twice a week to OT with other kids from these programs, that we would drive him over to school when he wasn't having therapy at home. So he didn't go to preschool. That's not right for every child. But based on what my child was doing, where I wanted to get with my child, what the school was doing, and what they envisioned for him, it was right for my child. And of course, it ended up being right. I wasn't sure. I was not sure at the time whether it was right, but it was the right thing. And in that 1 year that my son stayed home and didn't go to that preschool where, I just didn't think was right for him, he progressed so far that at the end of that year, when they reevaluated him, the placement that they offered him was full inclusion. So he went from being in the most restricted classroom to surpassing that entire program. He wasn't a part of the autism program anymore. That happened in 1 year. It was less than a year. It was like 9 months that he progressed that far. So I put that out to you, and there are other people who have said, no, I want them to go to preschool because there's a measure of socialization, and if my child had been further along, I would have done that. He wasn't. The following year, when he was 4 and he needed the socialization, that's when he went to preschool. But again, at that point, he could go to a fully included preschool with an aide. He absolutely went with an aide, but by the time we went to kindergarten, he was completely caught up, and that was huge. Absolutely huge. So that's sort of my take on it, but we'll ask Angela when she comes in what the BCBA take on what she would ask the preschool about what they're doing. Also, we have a question here about how do you toilet train a 14-year-old? We have made numerous attempts. I'm thrilled that you've asked that question because when Angela comes in, we're going to have her take that on because she can speak very effectively to the research that's on toilet training. And when you talk to these BCBAs about toilet training, it lifts you up because they say, oh yeah, no, we can do that. We absolutely know we can do that. We know we can do that with every kid. And that, I go, yay, that's a wonderful thing. Okay. And other question about 25 with severe autism, how to handle behavior. We're going to save that for Angela as well. We had a question about, has my husband ever worked with someone? I have a phone call into him to see if he has. I don't know the answer to that question. Okay, and more. And we're going to look at your answers to the question of the day when we come back, so stick with us.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack. Jack Riley. He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
It's my birthday today.
Yeah, can we celebrate our birthdays together? Our birthday buddies? Okay. Wear hats. Should everyone wear hats?
We need some more friends for the house.
Here, you want to give hats to everybody? 1, 2, hey. Yay! One's for Christmas and one's for your birthday, okay? Go ahead, rip it up. Yeah. You know who it is?
Raspberries.
What do you say to Miss Jessica?
You have to look at her eyes too.
Happy birthday, Jessica.
What do you?
But what else do you say? Do you like your gift?
Yeah.
I'm over here. Do you like your gift?
Yeah.
Then what do you say?
So what do you say when you like something that somebody gave you? Hey, I'm over here. Do you say you're welcome or do you say please?
Please.
What else do you say?
Can I have cake, please?
Say thank you. Say thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to take off my hat, so it's not my birthday yet.
Your birthday is tomorrow. You are right. It is not your birthday yet.
Let's making
Check out
raspberries.
It's not my birthday.
They are making raspberries.
I'm so smart. I'm smart. I'm like,
Making raspberries.
This isn't the first time Jack Riley's mentioned making raspberries to himself today. He scripted this phrase while he was opening his presents just a few moments ago. Let's watch that again.
Raspberries. Making raspberries. Raspberries. Like making raspberries. They are making raspberries. Like making raspberries.
What are you talking about?
Raspberries.
I don't see any raspberries. I see cars. I see a car. I see a truck.
Jessica redirects Jack Riley to talk about what's present instead of non-functional language. This stereotypical behavior is a common one for kids on the spectrum. Not all kids, though, do it for the same reason. But typically, echolalia is intrinsically reinforcing. It comforts and helps regulate the self because it's a form of self-stimulatory behavior, like hand flapping or body rocking.
Hey, no, Jack Riley. Hey. Stop. What's wrong? Do you need pillow squishes?
Yeah.
Is that what you need? Okay, come on.
Let's go to pillow squishes. You just needed some tickles.
Jack Riley has been doing quite a bit of self-stimulatory behavior. He needs some sensory input, so Jessica gives him some tickles and pillow squishes, so he has some socially appropriate alternatives from getting the sensory input that he needs. What Jessica and his therapist need to do is anticipate when he's going to do this and try to redirect it before it even happens.
You were silly. Let's do this again. Okay, good talking. Okay.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest joining us here in the studio is Angela Persicke. She is a board-certified behavioral analyst. Welcome to the show again.
Thank you.
We call this portion of the show Breaking It Down with Angela, because you help us to break it down.
Yes.
And a lot of times we need to break it down to figure out what's going on, so we can figure out where we're missing the missing step and plug it in, or
Exactly.
or the missing information, or whatever it is. But I want to start with, you've got an upcoming event that you want to talk about.
Yes, we do. Autism Research Group are a newer nonprofit that was created from the Research and Development Department here at CARD. We have a free parent workshop next Thursday from 10 to 11:30 a.m. in the Thousand Oaks CARD office, and you can find all this information online, but it's on why does my kid do that? Practical tips for how to help your child behave better by Dr. Jonathan Tarbox.
Great.
So he will be talking about challenging behavior and what you can do.
Okay. I imagine you will be there as well.
I will.
Which means you won't be here.
No.
And that's okay, because, you know, all of our experts, we know that from time to time we have to let you go to do other things, because it's important to do those things. But I love this topic. Why does my child do that?
Yes, and this is actually a topic that that is usually requested by a lot of our families, because it's so difficult, so complex, and but we have some very, very easy and practical tips that parents can use at home with their kids, and a situation that may seem really overwhelming and really difficult becomes a lot easier when you implement these tips. So
and information is power, right? Knowledge is power, and a lot of times I know, especially when people are starting out with autism, there is this pervasive idea that, well, why is your child doing that? Because that's autism, which, fill in the blank, the connotation there is, and there's nothing you can do about it, which isn't the case.
Not at all.
So a great thing to go and hear about, okay, why is my child doing that, but also begin to understand what to do about it to change things around.
Exactly. And if you want to read about it a little more and find out more information, you can go to www.autismresearchgroup.org, and you'll see it right there on the front page. And we will be providing childcare.
Love it.
Yes, and again, it's free. So.
Okay, but they do need to pre-register to be able to go to that.
Yes, they need to RSVP, so if they go to the website, they can see how to do that.
Spectacular. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to ask Angela to take on this question about potty training. Somebody's written in about a 14-year-old that they've tried multiple things, and I imagine at the age of 14, you're starting to feel like, is this ever going to happen? So we're going to take that on after these messages. Stick with us.
The Center for Autism and Related Disorders strives to make autism treatment a reality for all children. We're happy to announce the opening of our newest treatment center in Thousand Oaks, California. To schedule an appointment, contact CARD today.
Welcome back to Autism Live. In the studio with us right now is BCBA Board Certified Behavior Analyst Angela Persicke, and we're going to take on some questions that you guys have written in this morning and last night. Somebody wanted to know, how do you toilet train a 14-year-old? We have made numerous attempts.
That, just the question alone, I mean, obviously we go in and we want to find out exactly what has been done in the past and what they've tried and what the situation is. But one thing that I want that you might want to start with is doing a schedule, a potty training schedule, and this is what we usually start with. And you might have tried this already, but sometimes. A lot of times, actually, people will try things for a very short amount of time and then switch to something else really quickly. And so doing something, make sure you're going to commit to it to at least a week. At least a week. But you want to start with creating a schedule, and this schedule you could use a timer, and you want to push fluids, and by that you mean have a lot of fluids available for the individual to drink, and then just start with a schedule of every maybe even 15 minutes. We sometimes start with as little as 15 minutes, and take the individual to the bathroom on that schedule, and you wait. And this is, I mean, a 14-year-old, you know, a lot of times we're doing this with smaller kids, and so you sit them on the potty, but a 14-year-old, it's a little different. But you wait, and you start with this schedule, and you create a really valuable reinforcement system as well. And so when it does happen, you throw a big party, something great really happens. So these are just the things that we say to do. Of course, in this situation, we would need to know a lot more information.
Right. And it occurred to me, a lot of times and I didn't today, I talk about the fact that no one on the show gives child-specific advice, because you guys get that would be way too hard to do, right? And even as I, who am not an expert, am sitting and looking at this question and hearing you, I have all these questions in my head. Like, you know, you mentioned you would want to know what has been done before, and my question in my head is, are there things that have happened before in the bathroom that have made the actual bathroom a negative place?
Yeah, it's very possible.
You know, I would imagine that at the age of 14, you probably have ruled out, is there some medical thing that might be exacerbating the problem too? But if you haven't, you know, so all these questions come up about, you know, what's been done before. I know at one point we kind of got off track with my son doing shoe tying because we had an unfortunate event that happened that had nothing to do with therapy at the same time. And it blew shoe tying for a while. And we didn't convey that information to a therapist who then tried to do the shoe tying, and then the shoe tying became that much more negative. So then we had to backtrack to be able to do it, you know, and a lot of times there's just, you got baggage. The longer that something goes on, the more baggage that you have. Like, you're probably frustrated. Teaching, you know, at 14, and if you're still, the cost of diapers and the emotional toll on it, there's probably a lot of stuff there.
Yes, I'm sure there's many different variables, and like you said, starting with, is the bathroom that environment aversive? And if that is aversive, even starting out with making that environment less aversive is very important. That's like the first step that you must take before you even tackle trying to get the individual to use the bathroom. So if the child is, or the individual is constantly avoiding the bathroom for one reason or another, we've talked about putting things in there that are exciting, that are fun, posters on the wall. Maybe I've used a portable DVD player for the bathroom, and that's the only time that the individual gets to see his favorite show. And so there are a lot of different things to evaluate here, and the motivation also is this something that has your child or your whoever the individual
at this point,
has your teenager ever been out of diapers? Was it something that maybe at one point the teenager or as a child was trained fairly well to use the bathroom, and then maybe regressed? So look at some of these things, and I would definitely look into consulting with a BCBA in the area if possible, so they can actually evaluate the different things that are going on and help you with this. And it's but we do have this almost down to a science, and there are even books out there, potty training in one day.
And a lot of times you guys reference, is it Fox and Azrin?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, and I should say too, I mean, my niece has one of the books out on potty training that references Fox and Azrin as well. But I think it's really key that this parent know that it is doable.
Yes.
That there are so many variables, though, but it all pairs down to there is a sequence that there is a science to.
Yes.
It's important, though, for somebody to come in and assess what part of that sequence you already have figured out, where the sequence isn't working. And as a parent, too, I mean, I think it's always great to have experts working with you, but by the time you've got a 14-year-old who's probably, physically bigger than, there might be other issues going on. I'm just thinking it's a case where you definitely want to get somebody because you've got baggage.
Yes.
And you don't want your baggage. And by that, what I mean is emotionally, it would be almost impossible for you to be like, we're going to start fresh today and we're going to try this the whole new way and I'm going to forget everything that happened up to now.
Yep.
And if you bring somebody in who they know that they can get it done and they get that started, then you will have more hope.
And also, one thing to remember is that maybe you have tried multiple different things in the past, but there might be a reason why now it might work too.
Yes.
And also, like you were saying, the baggage and being emotional in the situation may result in you not maybe noticing like the small improvements.
Yeah.
And that's why
BCBA
would be great in this situation because they will take data on every single small thing and be able to show you like what is working we're very good at changing something that's not working very soon.
Yeah. And don't have any shame about having somebody else come in and teach your child something. I mean, there are so many things that I could not have taught my child, and now there are still things. If somebody wanted me to teach my child geometry, I would burst into tears right here. I would offer to make you a quilt, right? And I don't quilt, rather than have to teach my child geometry, right? So no shame.
No shame at all.
About having somebody come in who can actually get it done. I'm not going to teach my child how to drive either, because I know that's not going to work, and I'm going to put that in an expert's hand who can get that done properly.
Exactly.
So, making room for that. I'm assuming at the age of 14, and that you're writing in here, and you said you've tried many things, that you've tried experts before. But so as they go and ask experts questions, I would be asking, do you do Fox and Azrin? Is that a good question to ask?
You even know them. That would be very important because if you know potty training, they should know these people and these authors, and also if the BCBA or whatever expert you use has any experience with teenagers and potty training, that's really important too, because it is different than teaching a very young 3-year-old or 4-year-old potty training.
And by the way, your health insurance should pay for this, and I say that kind of across the board. A lot of people have health insurance that are covering behavioral things and aren't, but I would imagine if you go to whoever the doctor is that is treating your child and say, hey, I need behavioral help, that they will write you the prescription for that, and your insurance should pay for it. And if you're not sure about that and you're looking for an ABA provider, your ABA provider should check on that for you as well. And you can go to centerforautism.com, see if you live close to one of the offices, but even if you don't, you can call the toll-free number that's listed on the homepage of the centerforautism.com, and you could make arrangements for someone to come out from CARD to do that. I am sure that there are other providers who do that as well, but if you haven't had success finding one who knows they can get it done, I want you to know that Center for Autism can get that done for you. That absolutely can happen, and your insurance should pay for it. So be hopeful, take heart. But don't try to do this on your own at this point. I wouldn't.
And know too that you're not alone. There are many people out there, many adults out there who are having the same problems and are not potty trained yet. And so this is something that there are experts who deal with this a lot
Yeah, and know that even, you know, age-wise, that there are kids that it's not the appropriate moment at different times, that, you know, maybe there's something else that need to happen. You mentioned maybe this is the exact right time, and when he was 13 or she was 13, it wasn't the right time. So it's worth it to do this again, because you can get this done.
Yes.
Fabulous. We're going to take a break and come back with some more questions about challenging behavior, so stick with us.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
I'm going to talk a little bit about intensity.
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are here right. She has extensive experience working with children on the autism spectrum. You are also you're co-director of the autism assistant director. See, I gave you I promoted you, and probably it needs to happen. So, assistant director of the Autism Research Group, and so we're thrilled to have you here for this regular segment that we call Breaking It Down with Angela. And she has a very honest and open and no nonsense, but very parent-friendly, child-friendly take on things. Okay. So we break things down with her and sometimes talk about the research behind why we do the things we do. So Angela, we've had a question from somebody that came in saying, my son is 25 with severe autism. How can I handle his behavior? Now, I'm just going to say too that when we use words like severe, what is severe to one person isn't to another. So it's really a quantitative, you know, it's a judgment call. And you mentioned behavior, and behavior, if you haven't already, I encourage you to go on the skills site and go into the behavior intervention plan builder, and there's a drop-down menu where you can start to look at all the different behaviors that a child might be engaging in. I'll tell you what, it's an eye-opening list. The first time I saw it, I went, wow, look at all the things my son doesn't do. Do you know what I mean? And I got very grateful about that. But there were things on there that he did do, and it was very helpful for that as well.
And on that list too, it's a list of like those are just options that we see most often, and there's even a slot to put in something that isn't on the list. Yeah. And so, but just
a long list,
just the ones that we see most of the time.
Yes. Pretty extensive, pretty extensive. So we don't know what kind of behavior this, she says son, so we don't know what kind of behavior this young man is engaging in, but you've described it as severe. You had just mentioned that you've got a workshop coming up.
Yes.
You might want to reference that again. And that's for people coming in person. It's not going to be something that they can watch online.
No, not at this point. It's going to be an in-person workshop, and we created it that way so that people could ask questions and talk about their own situation and
get kind of specific.
Exactly. And it's like I mentioned earlier, it's why does my kid do that?
Right.
That is the main title, and it's practical tips to help your child behave better, or to help you work with your child. And in this situation too, again, as I've mentioned with potty training, there are a lot of things going on, especially with a child or an adult now who is 25. There's a long history of behaving in certain ways and getting things and not getting other things. And so there are a lot of factors that need to be evaluated and looked at. But what it all comes down to is what is the adult getting out of it? What is the person getting out of it? What is the function of the behavior? So what happens in the environment before that causes the behavior and is maintained by a consequence? So what happens after the behavior occurs? And we have most of the time what we talk about is attention. Is your child getting attention from behaving in a certain way? And this could be positive attention. Saying, oh, what's wrong? Are you okay? It's okay. Or even negative attention. So looking at your child and say, stop doing that. Don't do that right now. That's still attention. And then, is the individual getting something, a tangible item, when he or she behaves in a certain way? Is he or she escaping from something, a demand placed on him? So every time you ask him to eat a bite of food, even at dinner time, does he or she, scream or throw himself on the ground or start to punch people? I mean, that happens too. So, or is it a situation maybe where there's no attention? Like there's maybe the individual is alone and deprived of attention or something like that, or deprived of something in the environment and starts to act out just to get something else. So look at these situations and see what is happening right before the behavior occurs and what is happening right after. That's the one thing that you can do to really see what is going on.
I find myself wanting to reference, because as a parent, sometimes it's so hard. I hear you talking about all this, and I know it to be true because I've seen it with my own child and I've seen it with other children, that all the behavior that any individual does, they do for a reason. I don't think I looked at it that way before autism, but I do now when I can remind myself to look at it that way. But I'll tell you what, there's a book that's it's by Richard Strip, and it's called Mommy, I Wish I Could Tell You What They Did to Me at School. And it's a very enlightening book. It's one you gotta make sure that your stomach lining can take it on a given day. But I realized when I was reading his book, because he tells a story of what's happening at school and then tells it from the child's point of view and then tells it from the aide's point of view. And it's fascinating, though, because you see in the book that the child is behaving in a way, and sometimes it's teenagers who are behaving in a way that it really isn't conducive towards getting anything done. And then you read the section about where it's from the point of view of that individual, and you realize, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. The one that comes to mind is the boy that every morning they were taking him to school, and he was probably 15 years old, and every morning the mom, who was an older mom who was trying to get him ready, and he was a big kid, and he would sometimes hit her, and he would take his shoes and hide them or throw them away or throw them out the window or hit her with them or do whatever. And she was focused on the shoes and why is he doing that? I have no idea why he's doing that. But what we discover through the telling of the story is that he's doing that because he doesn't want to go to school, because school is such a bad place, and he thinks in his mind, if I can get rid of the shoes. There was one day that they couldn't find the shoes, and she let him stay home. And so he's forever doing anything he can to not take the shoes, because that's the only way that he has to communicate that I don't want to go to that place. It's not a good place for me. And I think it was too hard for me as a parent to look at my child's behavior and think that it was in reaction to something. I just was so caught up in the behavior. But being able to look at somebody else's kid and go, oh my goodness, of course you would try to destroy your shoes if you didn't want to go to school, allowed me to start looking at my son's behavior in a different way. So Richard Strip, Mommy, I wish I could tell you what they did to me at school, but we all need to start trying to see behavior that our children do as communication.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one thing you really have to focus on, is that your child does not know how to communicate with you any other way, and so he or she is doing what worked in the past. In that situation, throwing the shoes or hiding the shoes worked in the past to not go to school. And so whatever it is, remember that it didn't just appear out of nowhere. The child is engaging in this behavior, or the adult in this situation is engaging in behaviors because they work. They work to get what he or she wants.
Or it comes as close to getting it done. I think we get caught up in this thing of, well, he ended up having to go to school anyway, so clearly that wasn't the thing. But if it meant that he got 30 more seconds of not going to school, that's enough of a paycheck. So looking at the behavior and realizing that it's communication, making sure that they have a way to communicate that's better. We talk about this all the time on the show, and I know people tend to think, well, that's what works for a 4-year-old, but the truth is, if a 25-year-old adult who isn't on the spectrum doesn't have a way to communicate their needs, they will engage in challenging behavior. And it has nothing to do with autism. If you can't get your needs met, what are you going to do? I throw tantrums sometimes.
I mean, even thinking about when you're driving in the car and you're trying to, you can't tell the other people what they should be, how they should be driving, and you see people
flipping people off, and
it's the same kind of situation. And
people behave in ways that they know better. I have been known to raise my voice in my home, and I know better, and I'm not that kind of mom, and I don't want to be that kind of mom, but when I can't get, we've told the story before, about 2 years ago when we went shoe shopping, I laid down in the middle of the store and said, I'm not moving until somebody listens to me. And this year when we went shoe shopping, I said, let's not have a repeat of last year, shall we? But it's a way that I got that need met. So we will, and we will go to great lengths to get our needs met.
And I think the most important point here is that we don't just reduce behaviors that are inappropriate. We need to teach replacement behaviors.
Yes, appropriate
replacement behaviors, exactly. We cannot just assume that we just, maybe ignore one specific instance of a behavior for some reason, and then everything will just be fine and dandy after that. We have to teach appropriate replacement behaviors that take the same amount of effort or less effort as the challenging behavior.
And I think the takeaway also here is, as we mentioned with potty training a 14-year-old, you can't do this by yourself. At 25, when you've got challenging behaviors, and I hear that you're asking for help, and I want to point you to help, it's not too late to have somebody come. It's never too late. You can go to BACB.com, find a BCBA in your area, make sure that you ask them, do you have experience working with adults on the autism spectrum? And list, say, here are the challenging behaviors. He is hitting me. He is biting me. He is biting himself. And depending on the state you live in, there are organizations that can help you to get hooked up with help and support. But it's the kind of thing that you can't wait any longer. You really, because the more time that goes by that these behaviors continue to happen, the more ingrained they get and the longer it will take to change them. It's overwhelming, and I feel for you because you, at 25, your child didn't have access to what my child had access to early on. And you probably feel like you got left out, but I want you to know you're not left out. There is still things that work, but we need to start them as soon as possible. Okay, we got a bunch more questions that are coming in asking about the toilet training and other things having to do with teenagers, so we're going to keep on with those. And also a parent who's got a 3-year-old with a question about, now with the diagnosis, how I proceed. So stick with us.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides programs to educate students, parents, and professionals proven techniques using applied behavior analysis. Access online video lessons with IBT e-learning. Get one-on-one personalized instruction with IBT face-to-face training. Acquire professional guidance with IBT BCBA supervision. Develop professional growth with IBT continuing education courses. Get access to IBT services today. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to the show. We have with us BCBA, Board Certified Behavior Analyst, Angela Persicke, and we're answering some of the questions that you guys are putting in on the live feature. One had just come in that's about feeding, and about feeding with a 16-year-old. Is feeding therapy out of the question for a 16-year-old at school? My daughter will only eat carbs, and I'm trying to get her to eat fruits and veggies. I don't necessarily want to hide them in foods if I can avoid it. And I feel you and I hear you. Here's the thing that I would like to do, because while we could have Angela Persicke address that, we have with us tomorrow an expert in the field of feeding, Dr. Adele Nadowski. So I'd like to save that question for tomorrow. It is never too late, though, to be working on feeding issues. It might be a question of whether you decide to have it worked on at school or whether you have it worked on at home, and Dr. Nadowski is going to be really adept at answering your question tomorrow. So that will be in the first hour, 20 minutes into the first hour tomorrow. So we're going to wait and refer that one to her. Also, we had been talking about toilet training, and somebody wanted to know, when do you start toilet training a child on the autism spectrum? Because we were talking about, can you toilet train a 14-year-old? And the answer is yes. It might be, slightly different and a little bit more intensive because we have some ingrained habits there. But when you're starting to work with a child, is there an age at which you start to work on toilet training with children on the autism spectrum?
I wouldn't necessarily say there's a specific age. Around the same age that a neurotypical child would start to potty train, between 2 and 3, is an easy point to look at, but you need to look at your child's skills and what is most important at this point in time. Maybe there are a lot of other skills that your child needs first before potty training is, on the list of priorities. Maybe it's a little farther down. Also, if your child is a little younger and may not be in preschool yet or kindergarten, this might not be an issue too. But once your child is getting close to the school age, there are some restrictions within certain schools, most schools, that your child has to be potty trained to be in certain classrooms sometimes. So look into those as well. But if you have a 2 or 3-year-old and you're really trying to get them caught up, it's not necessarily something that you need to put all of your focus on into in an ABA program at that point in time. We want to get the child to a point where they have a specific or a certain amount of skills too, and may even be able to communicate in some way, even if it is just handing a card over or grabbing a certain stuffed animal when they need to use the potty. So if there are certain receptive skills that are still missing, or even some manding skills too. Those you might want to focus on those first.
So what I'm hearing is that it comes down to priorities and prerequisites. The P and the P.
Yeah, there you go.
Because it's for the pee and the poop. We tied that all had didn't we? Yeah, because I know I was in a big fat hurry to get him potty trained. Jem had started and was doing well, and then we regressed into autism, and I kept being like, we got to get back to that. We got to get back to that. And that was on my priority list. But when we started ABA, it was pointed out to me that he wasn't sleeping, and that we weren't going to be that successful unless I had gotten some sleep and he had gotten some sleep. And then the next priority after that was that he was engaged in self-injurious behavior, and we needed to get that under control before we took on the potty training. And I look back on it, and I was in just such a terrible hurry about the potty training, but because we had those two things there and some other skills, frankly, the potty training happened like that, whereas we probably it would have taken significantly longer if we had tried to rush it before he was ready and before we had some priorities and some prerequisites in place.
Yeah, and also sometime for the first couple of days of potty training, you're going to spend a lot of time in the bathroom, a lot of time, and if you have a lot of these skills to make up, and if you have some challenging behaviors like self-injurious behavior, you don't want to be in the bathroom the whole time focusing on potty training if your child is hurting himself.
Yeah, and also looking at your personal schedule for when you can clear a couple of days that you can say, hey, we're targeting potty training, and not the day that you have to get in the car and drive 5 hours to your cousin's wedding. Do you know? Exactly, I mean, but that kind of thing happens. I remember when I was saying, when we started ABA, I was like, okay, they said, what are your priorities? And I was like, the potty training. And I literally was getting on a plane in 14 days to go halfway across the country to a wedding and thought that that was a good idea. Well, let's get the potty training together before that because I'd like for him to be there with all my relatives so they all think that we're on it, right? But that's where my head was.
Of course.
And so just so you know, if you're somebody who has these thoughts too, you're not alone.
Yeah.
And that it's good that people pull us back from the ledge. So a lot of different things to take into consideration, but it's never too late to start potty training. There are a lot of circumstances where it's the wrong moment, but it's never too late to start potty training. Okay, I want to get to, we've got so many questions here. Okay, we're going to get to as many of them as we possibly can. We had the parent who wrote in a couple of days ago and said that they have a 3-year-old recently diagnosed, and last year the child was in preschool at the school. Now they've got a diagnosis and they're looking to move ahead. They want to know what questions they should be asking the preschool, but they wrote in and said that the current ratio, there's only one classroom choice, and the current ratio is 1:8, and this is a 3-year-old child. So I talked about this a little bit before, and of course now with this new information I have more things to say, but I'm going to ask you to weigh in as an expert.
Okay. If the child is 3 years old and recently diagnosed...
and by the way, the school says they don't do ABA.
Okay. At 3, my recommendation is to have the child in 30 to 40 hours of behavioral one-on-one ABA therapy, because that's what the research shows actually is the most effective and works the best. This is, there are multiple studies over and over showing that best outcomes can be achieved for about 30 to 50% of individuals.
Do you guys get what best outcome means? It means that your child moves through life and does no longer qualifies for an autism diagnosis and doesn't have any difficulties that are preventing them from doing all the things that they want in their life. It's as if that didn't happen, that they are completely caught up, they are indistinguishable from their peers.
Exactly. So what we recommend for any child who is, just recently diagnosed, and especially this young at 3 years old, is at least 30 hours a week of one-to-one behavior therapy. In a preschool, you're not going to get that ratio and that intensive level of treatment.
Yeah, at 8-to-1, I mean, I just, we never can give child-specific advice, and we don't know all your circumstances, and we don't know what the circumstances are with your school and with your insurance and all of these different things. But I would say to you, parent to parent, that at 8-to-1 in an all-important year at 3, I don't know an individual who can do the kind of intensive individual thing that you need to do at 8-to-1, which means that your child, it's like taking an antibiotic that was prescribed for you and saying, I'm really just going to slice this up and I'm only going to give you 1/8 of it. And us expecting the outcome to be the same as if you'd taken the whole pill. So I want to lovingly suggest to you that you look at how can you figure it out so that you are doing this intensive program in your home and sidestepping the school. There are ways that you can ask the school to pay for it. I was successful in doing that. It was a different economic time when I was successful in doing that. You're going to have to weigh what you can afford versus, what emotionally you can handle, and how your circumstances are set up. And there is going to be a financial component to it that will make your head spin a little bit. But trust me, there have been lots of people, I couldn't have afforded it. I swear to you that I did not have the financial means to do it, but we did that 40-hour intensive program at home. And I mentioned earlier, it made all the difference. Think about that pill, if you were only going to give 1/8 of that pill to your child. And at that, in this instance, the 1/8 of the pill that they're talking about providing has not been scientifically shown to be effective, even if they gave the whole pill.
Yeah.
Right? And when we're talking about getting it done and help, and by getting it done, I mean doing everything that we can to help our children to make the progress that they can make. That looks different for different kids. There are no guarantees, right, of what the actual outcome is. But as Angela mentioned, that the best possible outcomes are achieved in that window of starting that between 3 and 4 and getting 30 to 40 hours of quality ABA, not quality in the classroom with 1 to 8.
No.
And I'm always, people go, yeah, but it's expensive and I don't know how we're going to do this. And I'm always putting it through the filter. If somebody came to you and said your child had cancer, you would ask how much does it cost, but you would find a way.
Yeah.
And I don't say that to make us feel guilty, because I know that I have been there too and cried many tears over it, going, I don't know how we're going to do that. But it's a great reason to come here, and we'll show you lots of parents that did, and we'll hook you up with other parents who did. There are ways to get it done.
And look at the funding sources for whatever state you're located in to see if there are...
your insurance may just pay for it.
Yeah.
Your insurance may just pay for it.
Here in California, insurance coverage.
I don't remember, and help me to know, are you the family that's in Illinois, just outside of St. Louis? Because Illinois has insurance reform. So if you are that parent, then they should pay for it. And that doesn't mean that you totally say goodbye to the school. The schools can still pay for OT and speech, and you can still stay connected to them, because maybe your child will go to preschool next year.
And also, we talk about supplementing, an ABA in-home or center-based service with these school programs, because there's more opportunity to socialize. But but if your ABA provider might also have the ability to send one of the therapists with the child to school to help with those different skills in the classroom.
Yes. So lots of different things to consider, but I would encourage you to look further than just saying I'm going to be okay at 3, taking a program that isn't ABA and is a 1 to 8 ratio. I have deep caution about that.
Yes.
We're going to take another break. We're going to hit. You wanted to know if it was my husband that worked for Fox Sports. That was Nancy Allspaw Jackson's husband. So you're wanting to know if if her husband worked with somebody. We will ask Nancy that, and she'll be able to tell you that next Wednesday during Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. But it was Nancy's husband, Reed Jackson, who worked for Fox Sports. So there we go. All right, we'll take a break, and we'll be right back after these messages. We are here at Dodger Stadium. We happen to be here on Autism Awareness Day. We can't wait to meet, greet, and see all the wonderful people that are here and take part in this.
I don't care if we never get
We're here with the beautiful and lovely Holly Robinson Pete, who's getting ready to sing the national anthem here. Are you excited about singing this?
I am excited, but I am a little nervous.
The whole family's here, I see.
Yes, words of encouragement from my 8-year-old, Mom, don't fail.
We are here with the fabulous, funny, and talented George Lopez. And you're throwing out what?
I'm throwing out the first pitch, and Holly is singing, so it's a good night.
You see by the dawn's early light.
Who are you here with?
My amazing son, Lukey, who is my inspiration to do what we do every day. And Autism Speaks is just a wonderful supporter, and we're glad we're here, part of this joyous celebration. And it's really exciting to watch his excitement.
What is your son's name?
Christian.
Christian. Are you having a good time?
Yeah.
Who do you think is going to sign your baseball?
Kim.
My daughter Megan, who's 11 and was diagnosed with autism at 2, is going to take the field with Puig. Woo!
going to be beside yourself.
I'm thrilled. I am so excited that all these people are here for autism awareness. It's amazing.
Morris 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Welcome back to Autism Live. That you just saw, we went to Dodger Stadium, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago now. It was so much fun. We want to thank the Dodgers. We want to thank Autism Speaks. It was a great, great evening. And the kids, I just get chills every time I think about it. The kids, as they were running out onto the field with the other players, and it was really exciting. There were a lot of people there. My child was up in the stands and he thoroughly enjoyed it. But I have to say that if you're wondering how the kids got chosen to be on the field, it was if you bought a group of tickets. There was a certain number of tickets. I think it was 30 tickets you had to sell to the game, and then for each set of 30 tickets, one child got to go be on the field. So not an impossible thing for anyone, because people were going, how did those kids get chosen? Are they the chosen few? Well, you know, they went around and made sure that they sold tickets, and sometimes they sold them to people they knew, and other times they didn't. So I just wanted to make that abundantly clear, and they were excited. Oh my goodness, those kids were so cute and they were so excited. It was really uplifting. Okay, we had a question very near and dear to my heart come in. Somebody wrote in and said, my son is 10, diagnosed with high-functioning autism. Lately, he's been acting out more than usual, talking negatively, whining, etc. Does this shift in behavior mean anything? How can I work with him? He is also calling himself a failure, loser, etc. We don't speak like this to him at all. What could be triggering this? Great questions. I shared with Angela during the break that we just went through a little spat of this with Jem last year, and Jem is also 10, my son. So and I walked around the building, and I'm surprised I didn't ask Angela, so I'm waiting to hear her answer, but I walked around, and anybody I could find, I was like, how do we work on self-esteem? What should I be doing about this? So so I'm thrilled that we're here with you and that you're going to talk about this a little bit. What do you suggest?
Well, first, the first part of the question, that there is this change in behavior, a lot of whining. What was the other?
Talking negatively.
Yeah, talking negatively. Some of these things, first and foremost, look at how you are responding to these. There could be some attention that the child is getting out of this. So maybe he or she is saying something like, oh, this is awful, I hate this, and then like you give a lot of attention. No, it's great, come on, we can do this, let's do it together. You know, something like that. So look at what is actually happening too, first and foremost, in the situation, and the whining too. Something I've seen a lot with, third and fourth grade level children is that they will start to whine and talk back to the parent, and what happens is that starts a conversation between the child and the parent that actually delays whatever the child is whining about getting.
So,
oh, I don't want to go.
It's
like
so
even
true.
back to I don't want to go to school. Why do I have to go to school? Oh, you have to go to school because school is good for you. It starts this conversation instead of, no, we're going to school, we're leaving now, put on your shoes. And so just look at, first of all, how when your child says these things, how are you responding? And does it start this whole conversation of that maybe delays something, or maybe gives the child a lot of attention for saying these types of things. And then secondly, something that we see a lot actually with these children that are more high functioning, and they develop such complex language, and all of a sudden they start realizing that we're hard on them, and we're trying to tell them that they're doing everything wrong a lot. Because when we're there, what are we doing? We're teaching them how to make up for some of these deficits that they're not doing, and correcting them a lot, and so they start to build this picture almost of themselves as I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing a lot of good things, because every time you're here, all we're doing is working on all these things that I'm bad at.
Right. Sometimes they misconstrue the prompting and the redirecting as they were doing it wrong. Even if we're not saying that they did it wrong, they're starting to get they get that awareness now of this is how I'm different than my other peers, and their parents aren't telling them every 35 seconds, you know, because that's what I do. I'm not saying you do, but I'm very much the helicopter parent. I'm like, do this, say this, you know, that.
Yeah, and I start to see this a lot too with siblings, especially if one is not on the autism spectrum. The child on the spectrum will be like, well, why doesn't my sister get these?
Yes.
Why doesn't my sister have to do these things? I'm always picked on. I always have to do all this extra stuff, and she just gets to sit there and play on her iPad. I don't understand.
Right. So I must be bad or I must be wrong because you're constantly having to tell me how to do it differently.
Exactly. And so a few things that you can do is just as a parent in general, try to shift your focus a little bit to the positive. What is happening that's good, that's right, that your child is you know, maybe it's even that one morning where your child actually gets up and gets dressed.
Yeah.
You know, instead of and a lot of times we're like, oh, thank goodness it's finally happened, and and then we go into or the parent will go into well, why can't you do this every day?
Yeah.
Instead of like, wow, like this is so great. You gonna like let's stop here on the way to school and get breakfast or something like that, something special. Instead of saying like it's comparing it to all the other things. If you say something like, why can't you do this every other day?
Even one of the things that I noticed this last year with Jem is that he's all about, he's a big boy now. Don't treat me like a baby. I'm a big boy now. And if he does something and I try to be mindful and catch him doing something good and say, hey, that was really good, because he has said, I want more praise. But if I even slightly, like, you know, do it in any big way, he's like, that's baby, because what I just did, everybody does, and you shouldn't be telling me that that was a good job. And you go, there's nothing I can say.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing I can do. I don't know. You know, but it's not rewarding to him anymore when I praise him in public and go, hey, that was a really good job you just did. He's like, Mom, seriously. You know, and he's humiliated by it.
Of course.
Because that's treating him like a baby. So being careful, always mindful to do what's actually reinforcing to the kid. We did a thing the other day at the zoo where I just made marks on the pencil. So when he was with a pen, I would mark, and he knew that he was going to get something for the points, and I would just flash him, and I'd do the thing, and I'd flash him, and he'd go, you know, good, and that to him seemed big boy.
Yep.
Who knew?
Yeah, who knew that would
Who
be?
knew?
And especially when you're a 10-year-old is getting into this point where things are, you know, some things are cool and other things aren't, and we have to, you know, be careful what we do, what Mom does with me around my friends, and exactly, saying something like, if you're like, good job, that's awesome, and doing these things that like embarrass or are kind of embarrassing at that age, you need to think about too, like what you said, what is going to be reinforcing for the child now.
Yeah. And of course, you know, going back to the beginning of the question about, you know, what does this shift in behavior mean anything? And of course, whenever there's a shift in behavior, it means something. And something has changed.
Yes.
Now, the thing about that is that a lot of times as a parent, now armed with that knowledge, I jump off a cliff. I'm like, you know, there's behavior. And so we got to go back to the way that things were before. What my child teaches me on a daily basis is that I really have to be an investigative reporter and pick up all of the clues to see what's happening. I mentioned that last week, with this much notice, like 3 seconds notice, they changed my child's classroom. His teacher and his classroom and the people in his classroom. Oh, happy, happy, joy, joy, right? And I told him, oh, you're going to be in this other teacher's room now. He's like, oh, cool, I really like her. And I went, okay, you know, but I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. And then 2 nights ago, we had some behavior. Of course, right? It's going to happen. But after everything was said and done and we had a conversation, and my child isn't a big crier, but he burst into tears, and I said, talk to me about what's going on. He goes, I feel like it's a really unlucky week.
Aww.
And I said, okay. And of course I'm thinking, oh, it's because he changed classrooms and we should not have done this, and blah, 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 blah. I didn't really have a choice, blah, blah, blah. And I was getting myself all emotional and hyped up, and I said, well, why? Why do you feel like it's a really and none of it had to do with changing the classrooms, except that there is one little change in the routine that I could arm him with to make it okay.
Yeah.
And that fixed everything. So it wasn't that the sky was falling, but something had changed for him, and it was gumming up his day.
Yeah.
And I'll share with you what it was that there are a couple of kids in his class who kind of like to get a rise out of him, which I was hoping he would not be in a class with these particular kids, but okay. And so the first day of class, one of them threw a little piece of paper and it rolled underneath Jem's desk, and that was a big deal. And Jem was like, please do not throw trash underneath my desk. That is not appropriate. And the whole thing, and then they all went, oh. So this creates a reaction.
Yeah.
So then they had been putting things underneath the desk and doing it when the teacher couldn't see. And of course, I'm feeling all that. And I went, no, be creative here. And I said, you know what we're going to do? Why do you think they're doing that? And we talked about the fact that they were enjoying his reaction. So I agreed to trade him for every time somebody threw something underneath his desk yesterday, he got 15 minutes of video game time. I said, but the deal is you must not pay any attention to it. It's as if it didn't happen. If you look at them or give them a look or say something to the teacher, it doesn't count. And he was thrilled last night. He goes, Mom, it happened 3 times. And he goes, I was kind of disappointed it didn't happen more. He said, I didn't do anything and I completely ignored it. And so today, because I think it's going to taper off, because if they're not getting a reaction from it, I agreed to give him 20 minutes for each time somebody throws something under the desk, and he's thrilled. He's like, I can't wait to go to school. I hope they do it because they don't know I'm getting something for it, and woohoo. And, it's this thrill, but we had tears over it. And really, we had behavior over it. But it isn't the horrible thing that I was thinking. It isn't that somebody said something so horrible to him that I can't fix that. Then in terms of the calling himself a loser and the other things that calling himself a failure, those things which we also went through with Jem, and I mentioned I went around the building asking everyone, what do you do for self-esteem? What was heartbreaking to me was to hear that at this age that we can give our child as much self-esteem as we can, it won't cover the whole thing. What I was told was you got to make sure that he's got a buddy, that there's always a buddy, or that there's a couple of buddies that they've got a place to fit in with. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. Having that one person that's your one advocate on your side, at school when things get hard, and to kind of to be there with you, and to that's what friends do at that age too. They kind of help each other. So, but also, what it sounds like sometimes that we talk about it as like this self story that they've created for themselves, and it all has to do with I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, no one likes me, and all those things that you say to yourself, and we all say to ourselves, a lot of times, but it's we're sometimes so fused, so stuck on those thoughts and that story we create about ourselves that we don't realize that that's actually not happening on the outside. So why am I thinking I'm a failure? And if I think I'm a failure, I must be a failure. And so it's coming up, discussing it in a way where you're talking about, your thoughts are just your thoughts. And it's not necessarily what is actually happening out here, like just separating them and making it so it's almost 2 worlds. So there's this world that I create this story about myself, and there's everything out here. And then talk about what are you good at? Yes. So tell me some things you're good at. And sometimes our kids on the spectrum aren't able to even talk about what they're good at. Pointing out, so when maybe they're good at academics, or maybe there's a certain sport they're really good at, and maybe it's even video games. Yeah, absolutely. Whatever it is, there are some things, or maybe it's some kids are really funny and tell really good jokes. Yeah. And so start to focus on what they are good at, and how that's doesn't mean that they're a failure or not liked by people. And even in this situation too, I can see how a lot of kids can create this story about, they don't like me because they were throwing papers at me, and come up with this elaborate story, because that's what language does for us. We come up with these great stories. that could just be unrelated. The kids could have been tossing a paper back and forth and it just rolled under his desk for all we know. So helping your child to talk about some of these different things and what it could have been. And let's look at the perspective of the other person. And even talking about intentions, you know, were they doing it, and was it intentional or was it accidental?
So we're almost out of time, and I want to bring up, somebody mentioned too that sometimes they learn this, they watch and learn from shows the bad words. I'm a failure, I'm a loser. Absolutely, our kids get that a lot. We only have 2 minutes, so we have less than 2 minutes now. Emily's going to cycle through some of the ways that you can get in touch. But you had mentioned too during the break that this is something we could talk about with Evelyn Gould too, and using ACT, acceptance, commitment, therapy, that really good for parents dealing with self-esteem and to be able to share that information with our kids. There's a book called The Reality Slap that Evelyn recommends a lot, and all important things. And I'm sorry I interrupted you in the middle of a thought. But lots of different ways, but the key, I think, for us was that we just needed to get busy working on it from lots of different directions and shoring up and trying to get our child to talk to us as much as possible. If they have the words to be able to say failure and loser, hopefully they have the receptive words for us to be able to have conversations to find out what's going on, what changed, and help them to get through if there's something that changed that they need to. Sometimes I sometimes limit games if I see that Jem is using negative language towards himself or other people. I go, well, you know, if using that game means you're going to talk that way, then we're not going to do that game for a while.
Yeah, and look at what your child is reading too. I mean, Diary of a Wimpy Kid is really popular for this age group, but it does have a lot of negativity in it as well. So
all right, so we are out of time. We're going to be back tomorrow. Dr. Adele Nadowski will be with us, and also we're going to have Catherine Peters with us tomorrow talking about e-learning programs that you can do at home and that you can gift to other people like teachers and aides. So really important. Thank you so much for being with us, Angela. We're way out of time. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.